Okay, how are you today? Today we're going to be talking about the excretory system. You may know it as the urinary system or the kidney. Again, I'll show you what's going on with the terms. Hopefully I got a little focused a little bit better. You can see the terms, but I'll also upload that list for you like we always do. You see the first column. What I do up to right here is what I consider macroscopic kidney or macroscopic excretory system. It talks about the components, things you can see with your eye. And then I'm going to go to microscopic. What actually is what's working in the kidney to cleanse the blood? And I talk about the urinary system, excretory system, kidney, all the same. We'll talk briefly about what is the function, but it's pretty straightforward. It cleans the blood, yes? Micturition, proper term for urination, and then the components. And when we do the components, I have this one, and you have a handout for this one. And it says kidney gray board. Okay, and if you start on this side, it has the macroscopic part of the kidney. This is the kidney, this is the ureter, this is the adrenal gland, which has nothing to do with the kidney, and we have parts of that. And then we take a section of this, which is called a pyramid, and sometimes they call it a renal pyramid, and we blow it up, and it looks like this. And then there's a certain part of the kidney that's real critical in balancing water and blood pressure and stuff like that. And that's called Bowmens Capusle, Renal Corpuscle. And we'll talk about this. We can also look at it this way. This is macroscopic. This is the kidney. We turn it, and when we turn it, we magnify it. And here's a pyramid. See these kind of get a little closer for you. You see these? These are called pyramids, and what they are is a whole bunch of nephrons, which are the working unit of the kidney. And if we turn this, this is one of those magnified. And we can see there's different nephrons, Bowmens capsules, in different areas. And this is called a collecting duct. This collects future urine from each one of these nephrons. And here's it blown up, showing a nephron with Bowmens capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, Loope of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and then it goes to collecting duct. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Here it is even larger, and we can see inside Bowmens capsule is called a glomerulus. And then we have the Loope of Henle, yes? And this shows the difference in the thickness of this tube, which is really important because part of this tube pulls sodium out, chlorine follows it, and makes this very, very hypertonic. And then water is sucked out of the other side. And that's how we get water back in the blood. And this is Bowmens capsule, really magnified, showing the glomerulus, Afferent Arteriole, Efferent Arteriole, and this is the distal convoluted tubule. And what this represents right here, these three things, is the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus. Okay? And here's the beginning of the proximal convoluted tubule. That one works pretty good. And then we have this one. Remember we did this when we did the circulatory system? And this is the standing kidney. Now we're going to be looking at the kidney. And you can see the adrenal glands and the kidney. And we can see the kidney cut, so you can see the pyramids and the collecting ducts. We'll talk about those. And Calyx, Calycies. We're not worried about the blood supply. And then coming out of here is the ureter. And this represents the ureter. Then it goes to the bladder. I'm going to turn this around. This is the way it would look like if it was facing you, away from you. This is the bladder. And we can see the rugae on the outside, kind of like when we saw the folia of the brain. And this happens to be a male because they're showing the seminiferous, the seminal vesicle gland. And this represents the vas deferens. And we can see inside. And when we see inside, we see where the urethra begins. This is the prostate. Yeah. And there's an internal and external urethral sphincter. Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Okay. Then back over here, the components, the adrenal gland, the right side is lower than the left. The kidneys set offset, they're not parallel. We'll talk about the kidney on the outside is called the cortex. The inside is called the medulla. Those are layers. And I can show that with this one. This is the cortex. This is the medulla where the pyramids are. And this is the pelvis. 3 layers. Cortex, medulla, pelvis. That leads to the ureter that goes to the bladder I just showed you. Which takes us down to here, the pelvis, the ureter. The ureter goes to the bladder. In the bladder, you have sphincter. Remember, a sphincter was a valve. You have an internal and external one. That's why when you go to the bathroom, you have to concentrate because you can control the external one, which is made of skeletal muscle. The internal one, just inside the bladder, is made of smooth muscle, which means it's subconscious or autonomic. And the two communicate with each other. That's why when you go to sleep, you don't wet the bed. Maybe you do. The urethra is what drains the bladder. And then when we go microscopic, we're going to talk about what's the working unit of a kidney. Remember the working unit of a muscle was a sarcomere. The working unit of a microscope is a nephron. They have nothing to do with each other. It just means that's what's doing the work. But what gets the credit for it is the kidney. Oh, the kidney does this. The kidney does that. No, it doesn't. The nephron's what does it. Oh, the muscle contracts. No, it doesn't. The sarcomere contracts. That's the comparison. And we can see there's 2 types of nephrons depending on where their location is at. And I'll show you those later. Juxtamedullary. Juxta means close to the medulla, the medullary layer. And cortico, which is in the cortex. We're going to talk about that capsule. Okay, and that's where everything starts. That's where blood is filtered out. And that's called Bowmens Capsule, Renal Corpuscle, Glomerular Capsule. 3 names. Then we're going to talk about the blood supply that goes into Bowmens Capsule. Afferent goes in, efferent comes out. Afferent goes in, efferent comes out. I showed you that. Well, I showed you that on that model over there, but I'm going to show you to you right here. Afferent, efferent, distal convoluted tubule. These 3 things right here make up what's called the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus. Got it? And we're going to do some physiology when we get to that. This is the glomerulus inside Bowmens Capsule, renal corpuscle. Glomerulus. Fenestrated. Remember what those were? Remember when we did capillaries? We said there's closed capillaries, or continuous capillaries, and discontinuous capillaries. Discontinuous capillaries, there's ones with small holes called fenestrated, and there's one of big ones called sinusoid. Fenestrated, small holes. That's what the filtering system is. Then there's the renal tubule. Now we're talking about what is a nephron. Okay, and you see I have an asterisk on it to show the importance of it. What you have is a Bowmens capsule, this, and a renal tubule. The renal tubule has 3 parts to it. Proximal convoluted tubule, Loope of Henle, distal convoluted tubule. Let's go back to this one. I'll get a little closer so you can see it. You see in Bowmens capsule right here, you have this little squiggly thing. So you have Bowmens capsule, that's 1 part, and then you have renal tubule, consists of 3 parts. This is the proximal convoluted tubule, Loope of Henle, distal, even though it isn't convoluted right here, distal convoluted tubule to the collecting duct. So this portion that you see right here, not counting that, is the renal tubule. Counting the renal tubule, nephron. Okay, you can't see it. Wait, I can move it over for you. Whoop, that was quick. That's the wrong way. There we go. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to talk about when good stuff, well, put it this way, good stuff and bad stuff comes out into Bowmens capsule. You want the bad stuff to become urine. The good stuff you want reabsorbed back in the blood because that's where you want to get it to the cells. So when you do it, it has to be reabsorbed by capillaries, and that's called Peritubular Capillaries. The urine part of it goes in the collecting ducts, out the pelvis, to the ureter, to the bladder. And then over here, we're going to talk about three real important terms in the physiology of how the kidney works: filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. And I'll give you a definition of that. And then we'll do a little physiology of the Renin-Angiotensin-Aldosterone System. Aldosterone is a hormone. You want aldosterone to help you within blood volume. And the way to control blood volume is moving sodium around. If you move sodium into out of the collecting ducts or the distal convoluted tubule, chlorine's going to follow it. Water will follow that, and then it can be reabsorbed by the blood. Got it? More water in the blood, more blood volume. So we'll talk about that here. And then I'll take a break, erase the board, and put some other terms up. Okay? Okay, let's go. Let's go right here. Okay, wait, I'll do one thing here real quick. I'm getting smarter. You can't see me with my Red Bull. So I'll deny I did it. Okay, let me get my colors. Orange, blue, green, red, black, black, black. All righty. Okay, here we go. The urinary system. It's properly called the excretory system. And the reason I bring that up is excretory, you think of excrement, you think of feces, that makes you think of the digestive system. They're two completely different things, okay? The digestive system, feces is getting rid of undigested food, okay? Urine is cleansed, is the product of blood waste. Got it? All right. So there is three terms that we hear in reference to the excretory system. One, the urinary system. Two, the excretory system. And three, sometimes people just call it the kidney or the kidney system. Poor choice, but it's acceptable. What is the function? I've referred to it, this will be the third time. What is the function of the kidney? Okay. Right away, you think, well, it filters cellular waste. When a cell dumps off its waste, it dumps it off into the blood. The blood then takes it to the kidney, and the kidney somehow magically cleanses it, and then it's cycled through the body again. Sort of. Okay? Remember, the kidney doesn't do anything. The kidney is made up of nephrons. That doesn't. Does it just clean the blood? No. Blood volume, blood pressure is taken care of by the kidney. So if your blood pressure goes up for whatever reason, you've got to lower it. The only way of lowering it is slowing your heart rate or taking and reducing the blood volume. Got it? So, blood pressure, blood volume, cleanse the blood. Proper term for urination You know, you hear a term all the time, and it's acceptable. When I was young, if I said that, I got a mouthful of soap. But they say, I have to take a pee, or I have to pee. First thing, you don't take one, you leave one. But they say, I have to pee. It's totally acceptable, but it's not, okay? I have to urinate, or I have to go to the bathroom. Proper term, micturition. I have to micturate, okay? That's what this term means, to urinate. Okay, now the components. The kidney, the excretory system is pretty straightforward. Components. I put the adrenal gland on here, which is this guy right here, just because it's there, okay? In a roundabout way, it's going to have a little bit to do with the release of aldosterone or aldosterone, but it's just a place to put the adrenal gland. We also see it here. Yeah, the adrenal gland. One on the right, one on the left. So I put that one. The right kidney is lower than the left. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The outside layer is called the cortex. Best way to see it, you can see it in all these models, is this one right here. This light pink color is the cortex. And the cortex just means outer layer, because we have a cortex of the adrenal gland also. And then this is the medulla or medullary layer, where all the pyramids are. And the pyramids are made out of nephrons, which is the working unit. And then this is the pelvis. Good? So, outside cortex, middle layer is medulla. Inside, innermost is the pelvis. The pelvis is made up of Calyx, Calycies, okay, plural singular. And we'll talk about those back over there. Going from the kidney or from the renal pelvis to the bladder is a tube. And that tube is called the ureter. Okay? Now, right here it gets to the bladder. So here's what we're talking about. I'll turn it this way so you can see. The ureter starts up here at the pelvis, comes all the way down and into the bladder. Into the bladder. Comes in on the right side, comes in on the left side. Okay? So that's where we're at, the bladder. Now, so essentially what you see is you see a ureter, a bladder, and a urethra. The urethra goes to the outside. There is a sphincter here and a sphincter here. That means a valve there and a valve means two valves. The inside valve is called the internal urethral sphincter, made up of smooth muscle. The outside one is called the external urethral sphincter, made up of skeletal. Okay? And then the urethra is what drains the bladder. That's why I think I put it on your exam. Drains bladder. Okay? Now, let's switch gears and go into microscopic. Microscopic. The working unit, this is the way it's on your exam. The working unit of the kidney is the nephron. When we think of a kidney, we think the kidney is what cleans the blood. Nope, it's nephrons. These little white line guys. The nephrons are what cleans it. And the kidney is made up of millions and millions and millions of nephrons. This dark area you see right here is nephrons. And there's so many of them, they just made it that way in the model. Okay? We can amplify it. You can see it good here. This is the nephron. Here's another nephron. Here's another nephron. Here's a nephron blown up for you. Okay? Here is Bowmens Capsule with a renal tubule going to the collecting duct. You can't see the collecting duct. Okay, and here's Bowmens Capsule. So there are two types of nephrons. Those that are close to the medulla, called the juxtamedullary nephron, and the one that's in the cortex, and I'll show you that in a minute, and that's called corticonephron. Juxtamedullary, cortico. Okay, do you see this one with Bowmens Capsule right here? And it goes way, the Loope of Henle goes way down into the medullary layer. That's juxtamedullary. Do you see this one that's way up at the top and it just barely goes down in here? That's cortico. Bowmens Capsule is way up in the cortex. Okay. This one shows the same thing. See them? Two of them. This one, they got it a little jacked up. They show three of them. So if you take away this one, you've got the two. Watch the Loope of Henle. Good. That's the two types. Okay? All right. Take a little quick one. You guys can go to the bathroom. Okay, what I'm going to do is, we got all the way over here to the three parts to the tube. Okay, renal tubule, there's three parts to it. Now, I told you there are proximal convoluted tubule, Loope of Henle, distal convoluted tubule. I showed you what they were on the model. I'm going to draw it. I'm going to draw it two ways. I'm going to draw it so it's spread out the way you almost always see it drawn, which isn't the way it actually is. When it actually is, this is Bowmens Capsule. This is the proximal convoluted tubule. Loope of Henle, distal convoluted tubule wraps around into the mouth of the Bowmens Capsule. But when they draw it, they put it over here so you can see the entire nephron. I'm going to draw it to you that way first to show you these parts. Then I'll erase this part and we'll talk about what it actually looks like, because that leads to the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus. Okay, so I think you can see. Let me move it over just a little bit more for you. Wrong. You know, you got a 50-50 shot at getting it right the first time, and I never get it right. Okay, I'm drawing. Ready? Bowmens Capsule. Okay, Bowmens Capsule. You know, it has three names: Bowmens Capsule, Renal Corpuscle, Glomerular Capsule. Okay, so I'll put Bowmens Capsule. Okay, and then it's corrugated. We call it convoluted. Loope of Henle. Loops back up, convoluted again. Okay. And then it goes into the collecting duct. This is collecting duct. It says collecting duct. It collects from that nephron, and it collects from another nephron, and another nephron, and another nephron. So what it's doing is it's descending towards the pelvis. Oh, this is a better one. When it's descending towards the pelvis, it's picking up nephrons from other ones. Okay, distal convoluted tubules from other ones. Okay, got it? Okay. So let me put in some names for you. Bowmens Capsule, renal tubule. Bowmens Capsule, renal tubule. Renal tubule, three parts. proximal convoluted tubule, Loope of Henle, that's this whole thing, and distal convoluted tubule. Got it? Proximal convoluted tubule, Loope of Henle, distal convoluted tubule. We're headed to collecting ducts. Don't worry about this up here. Collecting ducts. You can't see that. Okay? Now we're back over here. Over here, descending aorta. Here's where I'm at. Descending aorta, to flip it around. Descending aorta. Renal artery. Eventually, here we go. Renal artery. Got it? And that's going to lead to this. This is what I'm going to draw next. This is where I'm at. I'm drawing Bowmens Capsule, and this is called the Efferent Arteriole. Descending aorta. Okay, good. Renal artery. Okay, renal artery comes in and there's branches. Go into other nephrons. Okay, and there's one that comes in here. Okay, the one that comes into Bowmens Capsule, I'll put it in another color. I'll put it in green for you. One that comes into Bowmens Capsule is called afferent, A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, Afferent Arteriole. Not a capillary, arteriole. 3 tunics. Here's where I'm at. Afferent Arteriole leads into it. Now, once it's inside, it's long, coiled up. Kind of like the seminiferous tubule was when we did meiosis. It's all coiled up, and then it comes out. When it comes out, it's called efferent, E-F-F. I don't know why I'm writing this down. You can't even see it. Efferent arteriole. Now, some people do not realize that that is not a capillary. They think, when you have diffusion, it has to be a capillary. No, not a capillary. It's an arteriole with holes in it. The arteriole with holes in it is called a fenestrated arteriole. Do you understand? Those holes are a predetermined size. They're small, that won't allow proteins and blood cells out, but they're large enough to allow glucose, water, ammonia, sodium, chloride, calcium, all those things can come out. Do you understand? Amino acids can come out. Do you understand? So picture a kitchen sink, okay? And the kitchen sink has a hole in the bottom. The kitchen sink represents Bowmens Capsule. The hole, the sink hole, is the proximal convoluted tubule. What's going down the sink? Things that can be liquefied and are small. If it's too big, like a string bean or something, it can't go down the hole. There's a little net there, isn't there? Same thing with the kidney. The green bean would be a protein. A Brussels sprout would be a blood cell. Those can't go down. They're too big. Does that make sense? So they stay in the glomerulus. I haven't written that down here. Whoops. This coiled up stuff is called the glomerulus, which is an arteriole with holes in it. Fenestrated arteriole. Do you understand? So let's get back to the sink. You got a sink, and there's a hole in it. Proximal convoluted tubule. Sink, Bowmens Capsule. What fed the sink a solution? The tap water, whatever you poured into it. That's your blood supply. Your afferent, AFF, arteriole. Put the glomerulus in there that put the blood in the sink. Okay? Some of the stuff couldn't come out of the blood vessel, the afferent arteriole, or the glomerulus, because it's a glomerulus now. It was afferent going in, efferent coming out, glomerulus when it was inside. There was things that couldn't come out. The holes were too small. Proteins, okay, blood cells, those can't come out. Most everything else, as long as it's small enough, can, which means there's good stuff and there's bad stuff in there. The bad stuff you want to continue to the bladder. The good stuff you want brought back into the blood, which is going to be our next topic. So let's look over here what we got. Afferent arteriole goes in. Efferent arteriole comes out. What was it when it was inside? It was called glomerulus. And the glomerulus is an arteriole. That is fenestrated. Means it has holes in it. Yeah? Now, after the sinkhole, you have a drain pipe, don't you? And the drain pipe goes all the way out to the sewer, doesn't it? Okay? So the drain pipe is the renal tubule, consisting of the proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule. Got it? Just like your septic part of your house picks up the bathroom, picks up the kitchen. If you have another bathroom, picks that up and takes it outside. What is taking it outside is collecting duct. And I drew a poor collecting duct, but I'll do it better for you in just a moment. Got it? And then as it goes out, the collecting duct goes out to the street. It's being picked up by other neighbors. That collecting duct is picking up their septic before it gets into the city sewer going out. Do you see how that works? The city sewer going out is going to be the bladder and the urethra. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to erase part of this, and I'm not going to shut this off. You're going to watch me erase this because I want to draw this better. You guys still in your pajamas? Come on, man. If I told you right now it was 2 o'clock in the morning outside, would you believe me? Can't tell, can you? It's not. Just sounds good. Okay? Don't let this stuff be on this, okay? Because we don't have much time left. And then we're going to have that last exam. Okay? Because today's like 15th or 16th, isn't it? Oh, you wouldn't know that. Anyway, here's your collecting duct. And here's the other nephrons. Got it? Other nephron. Other nephron. These are all distal convoluted tubules of other nephrons joining the collecting duct. And I'll do it like this. Collecting duct. Okay. I want to jump. I'm here, collecting ducts. And these collecting ducts, there's another collecting duct over here. Okay, there's another one here. There's another one here. And they all join. They all join to form Calyx. And there's a Calyx minor and a Calyx major. And I'm going to show you where they're at on the model in just a minute. This is a Calyx. And then Calyx all join together to form the pelvis. Okay, let me show you on the model what I'm talking about. Okay, this model here. You see this? You see this collecting duct? Here's another collecting duct and another collecting duct coming into this part right here. This is a calyx. That's just what I drew right here. Look, look, look. You see it? You see it? Here it is on this model. Calyx. Calyx, 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 calyx. Pelvis. And the calyx are calyx minor and major. In other words, when you have one, it's called a calyx minor. When several of them join, it's called a calyx major. When they all join one, it's called a pelvis. This one I like better. This one shows it pretty good. Okay? Calyx, 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 pelvis. Do you see? Okay, now what this doesn't show very good is a calyx major and calyx minor. I'm going to put it real close. Hopefully you can see the minor and the major. They only show it in one place right here. Okay, so calyx minor leads to calyx major, leads to a single pelvis. Okay, that takes care of the calyx, the pelvis, and then it comes out the ureter. Remember this guy? Leads to the ureter, to the bladder. Leads to the ureter that goes to the bladder. Are we good? Okay. Now, I want you to think about this. Remember that sink we were talking about? The sink had a whole solution in it. And it's going down that drain. Now here's where we have to kind of split from the drain pipe, because with the stuff that gets into your drain is all waste to you. But what about if you flush something down there that was good and you want to retrieve it? Where are you going to retrieve it to? It can't go out into magic land. If it stays in the renal tubule, either the proximal, Loope of Henle, or distal, it's going to go to the collecting duct. From the collecting ducts to the pelvis, to the ureter, to the bladder. It's waste. Do you understand? So what about if it's something you want to retrieve? Now I want you to think, what would you retrieve it to? In other words, where would you want it to go, the good stuff? Think about it. Where do you want good stuff that's going to be transported to the cells? What is it going to be in? Don't wait for me to tell you. I want you to think. What's it going to be in? The answer is blood. Now, remember that we lost it in blood. Here, it came out of blood. This is blood. Afferent arteriole, efferent arterioles doesn't really matter. Glomerulus, it came out of the glomerulus. And if you look careful, you see the little fenestrated? So it came out of there and you collected it in your sink. Bowmens Capusle. And then it's starting its way down the proximal convoluted tubule. We good with that? This is your sink. Okay, now let's not talk about waste. Let's talk about the stuff we want to keep back. The amino acids, the glucose, the water, the sodium, chloride, the calcium, all the good stuff we want to get back. We want to get it back in this blood, but it's in the tubule. So that means we have to take it out of the tubule and put it back in the blood. How are we going to do that? Well, that's the magic of a nephron. Okay? And we're going to work off concentration gradients. We're going to pump things. We're going to do all kinds of stuff like that. Do you understand? But remember, ultimately, it's got to go back to where? Blood. Do you see any blood up here? No. So let's draw in some blood. Remember this efferent arteriole right here? Well, let's take it and wrap it around the tubule. When it gets down to the bottom, now, when we start wrapping it around the tubule, guess what? It's not an arteriole. Now it's a single-walled vessel called capillary. Okay? Now let's name that capillary. Let's think about it. What's the capillary going around? Okay? It's going around a tube, isn't it? Isn't it going around the renal tube? So how can we name that capillary? It's going around. What's the word for around? What's the prefix for around? Peri. It's going around a tube, tubular. What is it? A capillary. Sewn gun. Yeah, Daddy, look, peritubular capillaries. That's the name of this thing. Peritubular capillaries. And this happens to be an arterial one. You're not the right color, we're going to change it into a venous one. Okay? When it gets down to the bottom of the Loope of Henle, it becomes venous. Yes? And guess what it hooks up with? Inferior vena cava. Hooks back up into the inferior vena cava. Yes? By way of the renal vein. Okay? Still peritubular capillaries, only this side is venous, this side is arterial. Wow. Now, we got one other thing. Around this Loope of Henle where we changed, that peritubular capillaries has a very special name. Still works the same, but it's got a special name. Okay? I'm going to ask you this on advanced exam. It's called Vasa Recta. Vasa Recta. Here's where I'm at. Vasa Recta is a type of peritubular capillaries around the Loope of Henle. Got it? It's around the Loope of Henle. We already did pelvis and ureter. Now we've got three terms right here. 1, 2, 3. Where did filtration happen? Whoops. Let me move you over. You didn't get to see that. Hey, I got it right the first time. No, I didn't. Wrong. Okay, here we go. Here's where I'm at. I did peritubular capillaries, Vasa Recta. We said is around the Loope of Henle. It's peritubular capillaries around the Loope of Henle is called Vasa Recta. We talked about collecting ducts. We talked about the calyx, minor and major, leading to the pelvis. One pelvis goes to the ureter goes to the bladder. So right here we put bladder. Okay? Now I'm on these terms right here. Filtration, reabsorption, secretion. This is how your kidney works. Technically, these are the words we want to use. Do you understand? Okay. Where did we see filtration at? Where did we see filtration? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to zoom this in a little bit more. Maybe I'm not. Might be zoomed in all the way. That sucks. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can get it to go this way. Zoom. Nope, it's all the way. Okay. The question I'm posing to you. Where did filtration occur at? In our model that I drew for you. Okay, now you can see the whole thing. I'll move it over a little bit. Where did filtration occur? How about right there in Bowmens Capsule, in the glomerulus? Wasn't that fenestrated arteriole? Didn't filtration occur there? Didn't I talk about stuff that stayed behind because it was too big and stuff that was filtered out in the sink? So filtration happened there. That is a huge term. So filtration, I'm going to zoom you back over. We're going to zoom all the way in. We're going to go back over here. Wrong. Well, I can sure get it right incorrectly each time, can I? You see this term right here. Filtration occurs in Bowmens Capsule. Always, 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 and that's it. Okay? It's mechanical filtration. Just the diameter of the holes. That's it, baby. Now we have two other terms, reabsorption and secretion. Okay? Now, because I'm going to ask you these three terms on the exam, and they're a big deal. Filtration occurs in Bowmens capsule. That's the function of Bowmens capsule. End of story. Reabsorption occurs in different places along the renal tubule. As a matter of fact, 65% of the filtrate. Remember the sink example? Remember that solution that was in the sink? That has a name. It's called filtrate. Okay? This stuff right here, what I didn't put, I'll do it as dots. How about that? Dot, 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 dot. Dot, 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 dot. Different, change of different colors to mean different stuff. Dot, 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 dot. And the last one, dot, 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 dot. I'm going to ask you a question. You tell me the right answer. What do the dots represent? Don't say stuff. Stuff is an incorrect answer. What do the dots represent? I just told you the word. Filtrate. The dots are filtrate. That's good. There's good dots and bad dots. The bad dots, we want to end up down here in the bladder. The good dots, we want to put back in the blood. Okay, so it has to be absorbed by the capillaries, the peritubular capillaries. It has to be absorbed by that. Does that make sense? Okay, the only problem here is it's already been absorbed once. Okay, the nutrients, all those good things were absorbed once. Where? Think. It was question 5D as in David on your cardiovascular lab we did. And I said, I'm going to ask you about this and it's going to be on your exam. And I said, when we do the digestive process, we're going to go over it again. Okay, now we did it on the digestive process, but what I didn't tell you is we're going to do it on the excretory system. I hope you're starting to think hepatic portal system. Begins and ends in capillaries. It connects the small intestine to the liver. Yes? That's how stuff got from your mouth to your blood, through the hepatic portal system. Now that you have all those good things in your blood, it has circulated through your body and picked up bad stuff from the cells. Now it's a combination of good things and bad things, and it's the job of the kidney to separate those two. There you go in a nutshell. So when it comes out in the sink in Bowmens capsule, it's called filtrate. The process is called filtration. Okay? Now we have to bring it back into the blood. Since we've absorbed it once, we don't absorb it again, we reabsorb it, which is how we got this term, reabsorption. You're reabsorbing the good stuff that you want back into the blood by way of peritubular capillaries. Are we good? Okay? And I gave you some percentages. Here we go. In the proximal convoluted tubule, 65% of filtrate is reabsorbed. Reabsorbed. %. We pick up another 15–20% in the Loope of Henle. Okay, now we're up to 85%. Yeah, and it works its way up the ascending loop. It picks up the most of the rest, and the rest of the reabsorption is going to be done in the peritubular capillaries. Okay, but we have another term up there. Do you see it? And that term is secretion. Well, if reabsorption is taking it to the blood, secretion must be taking it from the blood to the tube. That's correct. And most of that happens in the distal convoluted tubule. Secretion. Got it? Where am I at? Woof. I'm over here. I'm over there. I got to move this. You guys didn't see that. Darn it. Wrong, 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 wrong. Too much, too much, too much. The other. You guys getting dizzy? Okay, here's what I wrote. I put in the proximal convoluted tubule, 65% of the filtrate's reabsorbed. As it moves through the loop of Henle, especially descending limb, picks up another 15 to 20%. Now we're at 80, 85% of the filtrate has been reabsorbed, the good stuff anyway. As it goes up the ascending loop, which is this end over here, the ascending loop, it picks up most of the rest. The final part going through the through the distal convoluted tubule. But the distal convoluted tubule is known mostly for secretion. Okay, now I want you to take a pencil. You're going to be stopping this a couple of times so you get the definition. Filtration, number one. Filtration occurs in Bowmens Capusle, okay? Renal Corpuscle, remember there's three names. Filtration occurs there, only there, and it occurs from the glomerulus. Reabsorption happens along the entire tube, the majority of it in the proximal convoluted tubule, reabsorption. And reabsorption is going from the renal tubule to the blood supply by way of peritubular capillaries. From the tubule to the blood by way of peritubular capillaries. Got it? Secretion is from the blood back into the tubule. Secretion is from the blood back into the tubule. Got it? Now you're thinking, well, why would we want to secrete it? Moving you over, moving you over, moving you over. Why would we want to go through secretion? Well, think of it this way. As the blood is moving through the renal tubule, we're taking out the good stuff and we're leaving the bad stuff in the septic line, aren't we? When we get to the distal convoluted tubule, it's our last chance to balance things out. What about if something was good in the proximal convoluted tubule, but by the time it got to the distal convoluted tubule, the body didn't need it anymore? Then it becomes a waste product. Do you see what I mean? So let's say you had too much glucose, too many of certain amino acids, too much water. Then you're going to say, I got too much of this stuff in my blood. I got to offload it and let the kidneys, let the bladder take it out to the toilet. That is called secretion from the blood to the tubules. What about if we said, oh man, I didn't think I needed that much sodium, but I need some more sodium back. Then I take it from the tubules and I reabsorb it back into the blood. Do you see why I said that last 20%, 15% happened in the distal convoluted tubule? Most secretion occurs in the distal convoluted tubule. The smallest amount of reabsorption occurs in the distal convoluted tubule. In the loop of Henle, we're going to see both. And I'm going to show you how that works towards the end. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this stuff right here. I'm going to put some more terms here, and then I'm going to draw the way this would really be. Okay? So I'm going to pause you. You're not going to know how to pause. Okay. Right here, I'm going to move you back over this way. Remember I said I was going to make two drawings. One of the way the nephron would look if it was stretched out and the way it would look if it really was three-dimensional. All right, we'll start off with Bowmens Capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, loop of Henle, comes back up here, becomes convoluted again. And this is the distal convoluted tubule to the collecting duct. Got it? So proximal here, distal here, loop of Henle here. Peritubular capillaries, just the way it was before. Now, I'm going to draw in the blood. That'll always be the last color. Remember, going in was afferent. Coming out was efferent. And then we became peritubular capillaries. Remember that? Around the loop of Henle had a special name, Vasa Recta. And then this goes off to the, roughly to the renal vein and inferior vena cava. Now, something really important goes on right here. Okay? This is the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus. It is huge in controlling blood volume, aka blood pressure in the body. I told you before that we can adjust blood pressure by increasing or decreasing the heart rate and activity in the kidney. And the activity, we can do it a couple different ways. This is one of them. It's called the Juxtagolmerular. Remember in between here was glomerulus? Glomerulus? Okay, the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus. This is what I'm talking about right here. Consists of three things. Three each. They are: one, afferent arteriole; two, efferent arteriole; three, a section of the distal convoluted tubule. And there's some cells there that specialize in producing a compound, a chemical compound called renin. And they are called macula densa. Macula densa. Okay. Watch. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm gonna make it bigger right here. And I'm gonna make it so it's facing upward. Okay, you recognize Bowmens Capusle, proximal convoluted tubule. Coming in is the Afferent Arteriole. Going out is the Efferent Arteriole. Do it in green. And coming in corrugated, I'm going to make a section of it. Okay, this goes out like that. I want to make that bigger. Is the distal convoluted tubule, just a section of the distal convoluted tubule. I'm going to make this really big. It's not this big, but I'm going to make it really big. Okay, and these are cells. Imagine you have your computer on Zoom, not on Zoom thing, but on Zoom big so you can see it. These cells right here are specialized cells in what they produce. In other words, the ribosomes are producing certain proteins, chemical compounds, and these cells are called macula densa. And they produce a chemical compound called renin. Got it? And renin is an enzyme. Okay. These 1, 2, 3 things together are called Juxtagolmerular Apparatus. So what I drew here is that. Do you understand? Now you're probably thinking BFD. Well, it is. Because what this does is it monitors the pressure and volume of blood going into a Bowmens capsule, coming out of Bowmens capsule, and then what the waste products are in the distal convoluted tubule. So it takes and monitors all that, and if it's too low, it triggers the release of renin from the macula densa. Circulating in your blood is a protein called angiotensinogen. Here's where I'm at. You can't see me. Let me get you over there. That ain't working. Oh, what the hell? Oh, got it upside down. What a retard. Oops, not supposed to say that. Okay, I'm taking you. No, I don't want you there. I want you. I did move it the right way. Okay, you can't see it. It's kind of blurry. But renin is released from the macula densa of the distal convoluted tubule, right at the juxtagolmerular apparatus. Got it? Floating around in your blood is a compound called angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen. When renin is released from the distal convoluted tubule at the macula densa, and it's added to angiotensinogen in the liver, it's converted into a semi-active compound called angiotensin 1. Do you understand? So angiotensin, this is almost exactly like blood clotting. Remember fibrinogen and prothrombin? Prothrombin and fibrinogen are circulating in the blood. Nothing happens until factor X gets its nose in there. And then once factor X gets its nose in there, immediately prothrombin becomes thrombin, which is a semi-active form that causes fibrinogen to become fibrin. Remember that? And fibrin is what you're after. Okay. In this case, renin is the factor X. It's released. Floating around is angiotensinogen. That's an inactive form. It's in your body right now, all over in your blood. Once angiotensinogen comes into contact with renin, we're almost there, you got to go to the liver. And there's liver enzymes that convert it into angiotensinogen. Angiotensin 1. Okay, now we're not there yet. Angiotensin 1 then goes to the lungs in blood, and there's an enzyme in the lungs that takes angiotensin 1 and makes it angiotensin 2. That enzyme is called ACE. You may have heard of this with the coronavirus. ACE stands for angiotensin converting enzyme. ACE, angiotensin A, C, converting, E, enzyme. Angiotensin converting enzyme. It causes angiotensin 1 to become angiotensin 2. Now, angiotensin 2 is an active form. It goes back to the adrenal gland, the cortex layer of the adrenal gland, adrenal cortex, and causes the release of aldosterone or aldosterone. That is a hormone. Now, that is what you're after. That aldosterone or aldosterone back over here. God dang it. Every time I get it wrong. Okay, here's, oh, then it shoots off. Well, it's got you dizzy, huh? Okay. What happens is we're low on blood volume. More than likely low on blood pressure, because that's what's being Juxtagolmerular Apparatus is really monitoring. So you need to have, what's the quickest way to get more blood volume? More blood cells? Go back to the myeloid tissue and make more red blood cells? Or make more white blood cells? Or make other proteins, collagen and fibrinogen and all those things, put those things in there? You know how long that takes? That means you got to go to the ribosome and have it make it, put it in the Golgi, have exocytosis and all that kind of stuff? I don't think so. You need something done just like that. What's the easiest thing to add to blood to increase the volume? Water. Okay? Easiest thing. So what you're going to do is aldosterone, which we just said was released by the adrenal cortex, in the distal convoluted tubule. I'm going to put an arrow like this, and I'm going to put aldosterone. Aldosterone causes sodium to come out. I'll put Na. Causes sodium to come out of the distal convoluted tubule. Got it? Did you hear that? Aldosterone causes sodium to be reabsorbed. Remember that term? From the renal tubule to the blood, reabsorption. So it causes the reabsorption of sodium. Okay? You can't see this, can you? Don't ever drink that stuff. It's nasty for you. Okay. Now, what stabilizes sodium? In other words, sodium is an ion. It's unstable. Unless you add something to it, then it forms a very stable compound. Stable, it kind of reminds me, stable on a table. What is on your table that sodium is attached to? The answer is chloride forming table salt. Yes? Sodium chloride. Now, sodium chloride is a solute, okay? So it makes, the higher the solute, which the term we use is hypertonic. What are we gonna do to make it, trying to make it isotonic? We add what to it? Water. So here's where we're at. When sodium is pumped, because we can pump it, when it comes out, because aldosterone is telling it to come out, what is waiting for it out here is peritubular capillaries. So when sodium comes out, chlorine comes out to stabilize it, making NaCl. And what causes it to try and dilute it is what we're after anyway, water. The body has a difficult time pumping water, controlling water, because it can diffuse through the phospholipid bilayer. So what we do is we trick it. We say, sodium, you go that way. Chlorine says, but I want to go with it too. And when sodium and chloride are there, water then goes, well, hey, I'm going to dilute you down because you're making it too hypertonic, interstitially. So now we've got water coming out to dilute it down, and the blood vessel grabs it. The capillary beds grab it. Now we got water back in the blood volume goes up. Pretty cool, huh? Okay. The same thing. Let's see if I'm going over here, if you're going to be able to see me. You're not. I'll go this way. Wrong. Should have known that was going to happen. Okay, here we go. So what I put is angiotensin 2 is converted in the lungs by ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. That takes angiotensin 2 to the adrenal cortex, the cortex of the adrenal gland sitting right on top of the kidney, and causes the release of aldosterone. Aldosterone then causes the retention of sodium and the secretion of potassium. Did you get that? Aldosterone causes the retention of sodium. In other words, reabsorption plus retention, because you don't want to get rid of it, of sodium. Got it? Got it? That ain't the only one. That isn't the only way. We want to get that water out there quick. You remember when we did the prefix suffixes? And I said, I think it was number 14 or something like that. I said aqua. No, it wasn't 14. It was like number 8. Aqua. I said, what is aqua? And you said, water. I said, we're going to be hearing that towards the end of the semester. We're going to talk about aquaporins. What does a porin sound like? You said a hole, a pore, or whoa, I didn't mean to say that. A pore. A pore. Okay, an aquaporin is probably a pore, a hole that does what? Allows water to escape. Yes, back to where? It's a hole in the distal convoluted tubule put in there by protein synthesis. So what we do is we go to our ribosome and we say, we want you to make a protein called an aquaporin. It makes that protein and it inserts it in a phospholipid bilayer, kind of like a channel. They're aquaporin channels. What do those aquaporin channels allow free flow of? Water. What is the hormone that causes the making of aquaporins? ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. Okay? Anti-diuretic. Diuretic, offload water. Anti, don't offload water. Where are you offloading water at? In your urine. Okay? Beer is a diuretic. What does it do? It makes you urinate. For those of you drinkers, you know that if you drink a can of beer, you urinate out too. How come? You're dehydrating the body. Okay, what's the first thing you do when it gets hot outside and you're sitting around, you're going to have a cold beer. When you're outside, what are you losing? Water. Now you're drinking beer to make you lose water even more, and you wonder how come you're so dehydrated and have a headache. Okay. Anti-diuretic hormone. They make proteins called aquaporins that are channels, pores, inserted in the distal convoluted tubule to allow water to escape. Waiting for it right around the water, okay, was our peritubular capillaries. Suck it up. Good? Okay. We're not done. Now, this is pretty much of this straight physiology, okay? Let's see if I get it right. Oh, I got it on here. Wrong. Okay. This is kind of important. So we've talked about 2 ways the water gets back into the blood. And those were 2 ways that it was way down at the end in the distal convoluted tubule. But there's one immediate place that it happens, and it's in the loop of Henle. So the loop of Henle is for the reabsorption, tubule to blood, reabsorption of water, okay? And it's called the countercurrent multiplier system. Here's where I'm at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this. Okay? I'm going to erase the drawings, and I'm just going to put the loop of Henle here. Okay? Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm showing you 3 ways of getting water back into blood. 1, the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus and aldosterone. the Renin-Angiotensin-Aldosterone System. That's one. 2, ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and the making of aquaporins. 2. Third one, countercurrent multiplier system. Okay, so let's say this is the Loope of Henle. And this is distal convoluted tubule, proximal convoluted tubule. I'm interested in the Loope of Henle. Okay, now, pay attention. I'm going to use green as sodium. Sodium doesn't just move because it has a charge to it. It doesn't move in and out of the cell very good. The phospholipid bilayer doesn't move out very good. What it has to be is pumped. And we know we have sodium, potassium, ATPase pumps, correct? If you don't know that, nod your head yes, because now you know it. Now, this is the flow of urine, potential urine, through the tubule. We called it filtrate. Remember that? Called filtrate. Okay. On the ascending loop, that means it's heading toward the distal convoluted tubule, we pump out sodium. Okay? Now, you could imagine you first start pumping it right here, down at the bottom. You've been pumping it all the way as you went up the ascending. That means the concentration is going to get greater as we get to the top. So I'm going to put increased concentration at top. Got it? Now, what really likes sodium? Chloride, 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 chloride. Chloride comes out kind of voluntarily. Okay? Now we have a hypertonic concentration here. Just like we talked about with the Juxtagolmerular Apparatus and aldosterone. Same type of thing. Not the aquaporins, those are different. So that means we have a high concentration of sodium chloride increasing as we go up. Okay? Which means we want to dilute it. But water won't come out of this side. Water comes out the other side. The descending loop. So water comes out this way to dilute it. Does that make sense? What's waiting for it? Vasa Recta. You see why Vasa Recta was important? And Vasa Recta picks it up before it can ever get out there to dilute it. So it's hiding, it's lurking, waiting for water. Water comes out, it grabs it. And it says, darn it, I want to dilute that down, so more water comes out. Does that make sense? If you don't need the water, you cut off the pumps. This is called counter current. Here's the current. Current is water coming out the descending loop and sodium come out the ascending loop, and the counter current multiplier, it's multiplying it as it gets up towards the top. It's becoming more and more concentrated, and you have more H2O up the top on the other side. And then you snatch it up using your Vasa Recta. Pretty good, huh? So let's see what I have over here. Countercurrent multiplier system. Can you see me? No, you can't. Just drop something. All right, let me see where I'm at. There I am. Let's look at some terms. It doesn't do anything, then all of a sudden it just buzzes over there. I don't want that. Okay. I don't think I can make it any more magnified. I cannot. Okay. We have some terms here. Conditions. First one, anuria. Whenever you see URIA, means urine, something to do with urine. What does the prefix A or AN mean? It means without, urine. A condition of not producing urine for whatever reason is, it's going to be a problem with the nephron, you got that right. But whatever it is, it's called anuria. Got it? Urea, you see it again. The prefix is poly. What's poly mean? A lot of urine. That means you're producing, you have an overproduction of urine. Overproduction of urine is called polyuria. You're going to end up dehydrating yourself. We just gave an example of drinking beer. Alcohol is a diuretic. It's going to cause polyuria. Do you understand? Now it can be caused from other things. I just gave that as an example. Oligo, the prefix means small or small amounts of urine. Oliguria, small amounts of urine. Yeah? Okay. Don't take the next one wrong, but I think it's funny. For you ladies that have had several children, people that are obese, older people, females especially, they're more susceptible. What happens when you sneeze? I know you're going, oh, he knew that? Yeah, you get a little misting going on down there. It's called incontinence. You can't hold it, okay? Guys, if you ever see a female go to sneeze and they cross their legs, okay, it's incontinence. Now don't tell them I told you that, okay? Incontinence, here's your definition. Inability to contain urine from the bladder. Inability to contain the urine in the bladder, incontinence. Suppression, definition, do not produce urine. It's like anuria. Suppression, the kidneys are not making urine, which means the nephrons aren't making the urine, correct? Retention. Okay, retention means you're making it, but you can't get rid of it. Okay, for you Vicodin addicts, one of the side effects in some people of opiate use is urine retention. You can't, the skeletal and smooth muscle stay contracted and you can't get rid of it. Got it? So I had a concha broken and they took the concha out of my nose. I had a broken nose. They took the concha out and they gave me Vicodin. So I go home and I take my second Vicodin, right? And I have to urinate. I have to micturate really, really bad. And I go there and I stand there and it goes drip, 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 and it stops. And I went, the hell? Went back, laid bed, man, I'm dying. I go back over again and I'm trying to go again and it drip, 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 and stops again. Here's what I'm doing, retention. Had a little bit coming out, very, very oligo, a little bit coming out. I went, God dang. And I'm laying there and I'm hurting. I'm hurting. And the only option is a catheter. And I don't want that happening. So I thought about it. I went, wait a minute. Opiates, especially Vicodin, one of the side effects to some people is retention, urine retention. So that means I had to go through the pain or go through the pain and not be able to urinate. I elected go through the pain. So after the Vicodin wore off, man, yellow river. Okay? So retention, you know what it is. You're making, the kidneys are doing their job and just can't get rid of it. Next thing you see up here is detrusor muscle. Remember on this model, and I said, you see the outside, the rugae on the outside was so the bladder can expand. Well, on the inside, I'm going to bring this closer. You see those little bubbles you see there? That represents a muscle called the detrusor muscle. And you have experienced the detrusor muscle. Okay? You're urinating. You're on the toilet urinating. And right when you're kind of done, it kind of just like, once you get things going, it just takes off and goes, yes? But then at the very end, if you give it a little squeeze, you'll get out some more. Yes? That's because your brain is telling the detrusor muscle to squeeze, contract, and when it does, you squeeze out a little more. So the detrusor muscle is a sheet, S-H-E-E-T, like muscle, that lines the inside of the bladder. That's it. Okay. Detrusor muscle. Diuresis, the next term. Diuresis. Release of water in the urine. Diuresis. Increase of water in the urine. Anti-diuretic hormone, which is released from the posterior pituitary. Anti-diuretic. That means you're not going to have the water come out in the urine. It's going to go to the blood. We already talked about that with aquaporins. Diuresis is a term that means overproduction, over-release of water in the urine. Dysuria. We see the word dys. You see urea, so we know we're talking about urine. Dys, painful. Okay? Okay? For some of you who had an STD, gonorrhea or syphilis, yeah? Burns like a son of a gun. You can have it for other reasons. You can have an infection, yes? A urinary infection happens a lot in females because their urethra is so small, okay? The term is dysuria. Hurts like a son of a gun when you urinate. Inuresis or nocturia. These mean the same thing. That's bedwetting, okay? I don't imagine you're going to give me a show of hands of who wets the bed, yeah? But you know when you're having those dreams and you're looking for a bathroom frantically, and then your eyes open up real big, and then you check, and you go, oh man, thank gosh. Thought I urinated myself, okay? Well, some people, especially young children, get into a very, very deep sleep, and they can't wake themselves up, and they're bedwetters, okay? 99 times out of 100, they'll grow out of it, okay? Okay? You get too intoxicated, you're going to wet the bed, Jacko. So keep that in mind when it comes time to having that last one. Okay? Nocturia, inuresis, bedwetting. You may have heard tales of families having a bedwetter, and when they wet the bed, they put the sheets out for the whole neighborhood to see it, thinking they're going to embarrass the child into not bedwetting. Trust me, the child has no idea it's happening. Okay? And all you're doing is screwing them up on the other end. You know 3 things that all serial killers have in common? They torture animals, they light fires, and they're bedwetters. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean you just went and checked off. That doesn't mean you checked off all 3 and now you're a serial killer and you're going to go around the streets of Stockton. That isn't what it means. It just, psychologically, they have done studies that every single, as I am told, because remember, I'm married to a psychologist, I am told that all serial killers have those 3 things in common. Now, if you have those 3 things in common, you're not necessarily a serial killer. Please don't be, okay? Okay, next term, hematuria. Hemat means what? Blood in the urine. Okay, you look down, not supposed to be that way. There's not supposed to be any blood in the urine. With females, it can get a little bit tricky because if they're on their menstrual cycle, blood is coming out freely and you're urinating and it looks like pink lemonade or something coming out. That's not blood in the urine, even though technically it is. Blood in the urine means it's coming out of the bladder and the urethra. Hematuria. Usually comes from an infection. Okay, over here, I think we can still get to the tail end of this thing. What is in urine? I have a cup of urine. What's in it? Major component, urea. Urea. Major component, urea, which is a combination of ammonia, and we get ammonia from the breakdown of amino acids, and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide plus ammonia is urea. Uric acid is in there also. That's from the breakdown of nucleic acids. You take down and break down the nucleic acid, the nucleotides and stuff like that, it's going to result in a compound called uric acid. Yes? Urobilinogen. What the heck is that? Remember, we are breaking down, catabolizing red blood cells all the time because it's the most common cell. Hello. So we're always breaking it down. And we're trying to recycle some of that stuff, like the phospholipid bilayer, a little bit of that, and some proteins and stuff, okay? And hemoglobin. Remember hemoglobin? The heme is the iron, the globin is the protein, and that is an enzyme that holds on to, it's a cofactor enzyme that holds on to oxygen. Yes? That means we want to recycle that. When the breakdown of hemoglobin results in a compound called bilirubin. Bilirubin is made, or it's a result of the catabolism of hemoglobin. I'll put hemoglobin up here. In the liver, and then it makes its way down to the small intestine. In the small intestine, it's converted by bacteria and enzymes into urobilinogen. Okay, urobilinogen, bilirubin becomes urobilinogen. There's steps in between, but this is what I want you to remember. For A and P, you know the whole story. Then urobilinogen has two fates. It's either reabsorbed, because now we're in the digestive tract. It's reabsorbed by the hepatic portal system and goes out through the kidney as urobilin, or it stays in the digestive tract as stercobilin. Stercobilin gives feces the brown color. Urobilin gives urine the yellow color. Urobilin and stercobilin are products of urobilinogen by enzyme or bacteria, most of it's bacteria, conversion. Do you understand? Okay, that's urobilinogen. And inorganics. Inorganics, sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, magnesium, iron, all that stuff is in urine. And then the last one I skipped over that you thought I skipped over for some reason is creatine. And people that work out a lot think, oh, creatine is good for you. Well, what creatine does, it's a chemical compound, and it holds on, we get it from food, and it holds on to phosphate. Now we know that in cellular respiration, we make ATP, usually from ADP. ADP to ADP to ATP. That phosphate is put on there, called phosphorylation, in different ways. And that's called cellular respiration. It's in the mitochondria for most part. Okay? Now, you got to think of when you get to stability, which is like 50-50, 50% gets to stability, the process of cellular respiration slows down. So as you're laying on the couch, you're building back up to where you have about a 50-50 split, and cellular respiration starts to slow down because you've got this buildup, you've got this reservoir of ATP. But as soon as you start moving, you're burning it. Now you're going, 50, 49, 48, 47, 46, and so on and so forth. You can't go through cellular respiration that fast to build it back up. But we got a backup. Creatine holds on to that phosphate. Remember that phosphate here? It holds on to it. And as soon as this TP becomes DP, creatine can throw that phosphate on there. So when you're making cellular respiration, you're putting another phosphate onto an ADP to make an ATP. You're also putting one on creatine phosphate. So there is a little bit true to that. If you have enough creatine, you can store more phosphate that can readily become ATP. The problem is, like most people, they don't understand it, and they think, well, a little bit does good, a lot's going to do better. So instead of mixing up a tablespoon with 8 ounces of water and taking a hit before you go work out, you'll say, well, hell, I'll put 3 tablespoons in there, and I'll really have the ATP. No, you won't. You'll have constipation, okay? Because that'll dry you out on the other end. Okay, now we've gotten your little come to Jesus meeting with creatine, okay? Eat a balanced diet. This stuff all takes care of itself. Where was I at? Oh, what's in urine? So we talked about creatine. So that's going to come out in urine. What are stones? Don't look at kidney. You can have bladder stones. You can have kidney stones. You can have bile stones, gallbladder stones. What are they? What it is crystals. Okay? Crystallization of the liquid. Okay? from high concentration of salts, low concentration of water, abnormal pH, increase of minerals, any of those things, but usually it's all 4 of those or 5 of those together leads to the crystallization. Now think of it. I usually give this example. I don't know if it's going to do you any good. You know what, how you make rock candy? Okay. Everybody as a little kid used to like rock candy. It was sugar. That's all it is. Crystallized sugar. And the way you make rock candy is you, on a pot, on the stove, you heat up some water and you add sugar and you stir it. The hotter you make it, the more sugar you can put into solution. The cooler it is, the sugar begins to precipitate out. You don't want that. You want it in solution and it gets thick. Okay? You can do the same thing when you make candy. Yeah? And it gets thick and it gets thick. Okay? And then when you keep pouring in sugar until you see it start to precipitate, no matter how fast you stir it, it still stays to precipitate. Then you're super saturated. Now, if you take a string and you put it into some type of a form, let's say you put it in a, it's going to be hot, so you want to put it in a plastic something, but let's say you have a form and then you pour the solution of sugar and low concentration of water, the supersaturated sugar, into a form, okay? And you put a string down the middle. And what the string does, it allows it to, when it starts to cool, crystals will grab onto that string. Once you start the crystallization process, crystals attach to crystals, just like that. And what it does is when the cools down and it's already in solution, the little water that's remaining evaporates, the crystals form, and you have rock candy. Try it. And then you can have like clear rock candy. You can have red and green and blue. You know how you get that? You add food color. Hello. Okay. I'm checking to make sure we covered everything. We did. So I'm going to post this. And as I do, I'm going to type up the terms that are behind me, and I'll post those too. Are we good? Now, the next lecture we're going to have after this one, which is now this is done, is going to be the male and female reproductive systems. I want you to behave, okay? Because we're going to be talking about the private parts. Got it? That I'll do those. I'll do the male first. I'll do the female second. We're done. Okay? We're done. That lecture exam is going to be worth 170 points. That means there's 170 questions. Okay? It's going to be a toughie. And the reason I have 170 is we did more chapters this time. Okay? The lab is going to contain all of these things. Okay, we have most of those all ready to go. I'm going to make sure that these kidneys that I just posted, I'm going to take pictures of them and make sure those are uploaded for you. And we have keys to go with those. Are we good? Any questions? Sarah, Brooke, myself. You have questions on Zoom you want to ask? SI. Brooke. You want to have private tutoring? Brooke. SI. You want to have questions answered? Sarah, myself. Are we good? We have, our final is on the 18th. Today's either the 15th or 16th. Yeah? Do the math. We're less than 30 days away, about 28 days away. We're almost there. I know this is frustrating for you. Here, let me put this down. There we go. God dang it, that guy good looking. Okay. I know this is not what you wanted. You did not want online stuff. You want me to do the little stories for you and all that kind of stuff. Probably the biggest hurdle is not being able to touch the models and stuff. We have to reinforce this stuff. The ones I was showing you here, you get to actually come in and touch it. I get it. We gotta dance the dance. Okay? Okay? So I'll work with you. My team will work with you. We'll get through this. Okay? Don't forget the online stuff. If you have questions about your points that you're getting, make sure we know, we can check it. Okay, if you haven't done an online, it's gone, baby. Don't say, oh, well, I forgot. Hey, yeah, you're right, you did forget. Well, can I have another chance? No, you can't. Okay, so keep tuned in. I'll post another video today or tomorrow to give a summary of what we did accomplish this week and what's coming next week. Okay, so signing off. Don't forget, wash your pajamas.